Hey everyone, John Bristowe here with another episode of Inside DevOps, if I could speak properly. In this episode, we're very fortunate to be joined by Nicholas Blumhardt, who's the CEO founder of Seq, Datalust rather. I got to get my terms right. You may know Nick. He's heavily involved in the .NET space. He's built a whole bunch of things there. He's responsible for Serilog. He's responsible for Autofac and a whole bunch of other things within the .NET libraries and frameworks, etc. Nick, thanks for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, that's awesome. It's nice to be here, John.
Yeah, we've crossed paths before many times, and in a day long ago in a galaxy far away, we were both at Microsoft. And I guess my first question is, what can I blame you for in the BCLs, that the base class libraries of the .NET framework? Because you were a member of that team, is that correct?
I was, yeah. I actually spent 2 stints at Microsoft working on the BCL team way back. It's amazing how long .NET has been a thing for now.
Oh, I know, right?
That's going back quite some years. Yeah, originally I joined Microsoft to work on managed extensibility framework off the back of Autofac, which is IOC componenty stuff. And I spotted a blog post by Christoph Swelina in the BCL team saying, if we're going to build something like this, if you're interested in this space, reach out. And and I sent him an email, I think, way back then.
And then I did it. And then what did you touch? Because I want to know what you touched there, so I can put all my blame on you.
so somehow MEF was a really interesting project because it pulled together all these people who'd come from it was in Visual Studio, particularly, like a lot of people from this kind of component engineering backgrounds, building IDEs and things, and smushed them together with all of us who'd been out in these scrappy open source projects building these experimental IOC containers. So, I mean, you can't really blame me for MEF, but it's probably one of the things I spent the most time on.
Yeah, there's a few of you smattered around. I've seen at conferences. I'm like, wait a minute, we got to talk.
After cutting my teeth on that, and seeing how hard it was for us back then to actually get shipped software out the door, and then how frozen it was because we shipped things in the .NET framework, and once they'd gone out, that was it. The APIs were immovable and unbreakable for all of eternity. So I had been using NuGet like when it was like before it was kind of taken under the Microsoft umbrella, and I and a bunch of the other folks on that team were really eager to start pushing. ASP.NET had been shipping on NuGet for a while, but the BCL itself at that point wasn't really this broken down kind of chunk of these broken out chunks of packages or shipping independently. So I actually, you could kind of blame me for some of the I PM'd the first BCL packages that were released on NuGet.
There you go.
One of them was the second version of MEF, but the other one was really interesting. It was TPL data flow, which is something that I wasn't involved in the development of, but the owner of that one had just picked up another role internally and was going off to with this completed project ready to ship in the box behind them, and I saw this opportunity to keep one more thing out of the box and make one more thing a kind of fast moving NuGet package component. So at the 11th hour, TPL also not TPL the base library, but the data flow library on top of it.
Yeah. I've just mentioned this. If some folks may not be familiar with the acronyms, but like I loved TPL when it came out. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, but the folks involved with data flow, I think were hugely distressed that I didn't want to ship this in the box of the framework and that we're going to put it on this NuGet thing. But hopefully history has work out. Yeah, that was a really cool, interesting experience. I think it is a really cool library, but
awesome. So anyways, I mean, like as I mentioned earlier, I mean, you're better known for the open source libraries that you've been working on historically, like Serilog, for example, Autofac. Folks who don't know, did you want to give the sort of, I mean, I can't imagine too many people watching this haven't heard of these libraries, but Serilog actually hit my radar a long time ago, and I was like, this is awesome. Structured logging, fantastic. Here we go.
So Autofac was the first of those, but it's probably, I mean, I feel like a lot of that is water under the bridge in a way, and that, like, I think Autofac's obviously really widely used today.
Yeah.
But we've kind of been through digesting and internalizing what all of this IOC dependency injection stuff is now. Serilog, I think, Autofac introduced me to how interesting it is to collaborate with people online on open source. I mean, it was one of the first things that I really worked in that mode on. Serilog is just about to turn 10 in just another month's time. It's definitely the one that I feel like it's both, seeing this really wide adoption, but still not really being fully digested. It's really surprising still. I think one of the original aims of Serilog was that it's a logging library, and it looks like every other logging library. You write events using a log.something interface, but behind the scenes, it's got this kind of tactic to smuggle these structured properties and things along with your log events to make diagnostics easier at the other end. I think a lot of people out there still really kind of consume these sorts of libraries without seeing just how incredible it can be to have a rich event stream kind of flowing out of every application basically for free. So I think Serilog still has a long way to go.
Oh, really?
Kind of but
what, more syncs? You've got over 100.
No,
I mean, how many syncs do you need?
not a long way to go in implementation. But I think the ideas that are in Serilog have one of the interesting people I met while I was at Microsoft, Lou Desjardins, was involved in the design of Microsoft extensions logging, which the framework obviously now uses and lots of people can consume as well. And Lou, I believe, and Daniel Plaisted, a couple of other people who were involved early in that project, were also aware of how Serilog was representing events at the time and were able to make it compatible so that Microsoft extensions logging also has this structured data capability that Serilog has. But I think the challenge is it still looks exactly like just writing log events into strings like console write line. And so, I mean, the thing about structured logging is that it's actually a completely different process to telling that narrative story by producing text logs. It really is like every individual event. It might have a way to be formatted out so that you can read it in a human friendly kind of way. But everything about structured logging is all about like keeping those events rich with correlation info so that you can easily slice that huge stream of data in different ways to find the thread that kind of leads to your the cause of your bug or your outage or
those flame charts won't write themselves, you know what I mean? So those who know, but anyways, I didn't want to spend too long on your history, but it's still interesting to talk about because of the impact, right?
Well, the funny thing I've seen in the last, probably in the history of that project, is like 10 years ago, a lot of this DevOps kind of territory was almost a bit subversive, right? In that, like no one ever came to a project with budget to automate deployments or testing or builds or to build runtime instrumentation into an app. It was always something that developers had to kind of like squeeze in on the the crumbs of the time left.
That's right.
Which is interesting. And now, like only 10 years later, it's kind of like the imperative to make everything automated and repeatable and everything instrumented and observable is coming from like the C-level. So it's kind of cool. But I also think like as developers, we really should be careful not to lose our kind of claim over that territory. Like, sure, structured logging, OTel, traces, metrics, these single pane of glass things, they're all interesting and important right, kind of outputs of this observability trend. But like the techniques we've always used to make apps observable are just so much broader than that. Like one of my favorite examples is like if you're using Postgres and you want to know what the database is doing when it runs a query. You don't go and look at its logs really, and you don't go and look at like a fancy dashboard with a whole description of that process. You look at like query plan that you get from something like explain and then your SQL statement, or explain analyze, and you get your SQL statement with timings. And I think like that's just one out of a million different techniques that developers have come up with in the last probably 50 years to make apps observable. And the focus on things like traces and logs, metrics right now, I think I'm not trying to get too cynical, but it's just that, you know, they're common enough that they're easy to commoditize, and a lot of products have kind of you know, focused on that common theme that is applicable across a wide range of scenarios and apps. But really, I think as developers, we still need, and ops people as well, we still need to be kind of creatively thinking about how to build, you know, observability of internal state into our apps and systems. You know, I think it's cool to see the process going. I mean, I'm sure you've seen exactly the same thing in DevOps. Like, it's amazing that there are these common tools that we can just take off the shelf now to do so much. But a lot of what makes DevOps so amazing and successful is really the practices and how developers, you know, engage with what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah, I like to say that DevOps is like, people say people and process before tools, but I like to say it's people, process, and tools. I think "and" is important there. I think that provides a really good segue to talk a little bit about Datalust and Seq. You know, so I wanted to get to this. And,
well, yeah,
you know, you guys have been in this space for a long time.
30 vendors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, come on. I mean, I'm a technical guy. I'm going to gravitate to the pretty pictures. Come on. So,
no.
But you guys have been in the observability space for a while now, and with Seq, which is a product that we use quite a lot, and I absolutely love, because it gives me just a huge leg up in terms of understanding what's going on under the covers. The way that I like to think of Seq is, you know, like, if you think about logs on an application by application basis, they're pretty easy to grok when you have a single application, but that's not how applications and services are built today. Like today, your application resembles almost like an orchestra, and each application and service is represented by a different instrument. And yes, you can realize, like, an orchestra can play a beautiful symphony, but that's not how logging is. Like logging, if anything, it's like when the orchestra is noodling, you know, when they're warming up and you can't understand a single note or all that. That's what logging's like to me. And so
that's it. And you need to go turn that noisy instrument down at the mixing desk, you know.
100%. So basically, the way that I think of Seq, which is, you know, I'll reference the site here. So the way that I like to think of Seq is that, like, I'm a huge fan, like I said. And the power of Seq to me is when you have this boatload of log data coming in from a variety of different sources, like an orchestra, everyone playing at once. You got lots of noise, lots of activity. And then you simply walk up, you write a query, and then suddenly you can instantly hear the melody of the music being played in your app. And so tell us a little bit about Seq.
Yeah, it's that's a really good description of what we try to achieve with it. It's I think one of the things that I like we've kept about Seq. I mean, I started building Seq as you know, scratching an itch kind of project back when I was a consultant, because, you know, I felt like there was a gap between kind of like log files and then on the one hand, and then something that I had to have, you know, a consulting team in my office for a month to implement on the other hand. Like, I really wanted something, and I still want something that's very, like, that feels a lot like a log file. That gives me my data. You know, open up Seq and I just see everything that's pouring in. Pretty much in real time, and then I can pick out something in that stream that's interesting because I've either filtered down a bit or just spotted something. You know, probably someone's given me a kind of a bug report. They mentioned an exception message. I can search and find that exception, but then from there, Seq, you can see in the screenshot there, actually, with all the properties attached to that expanded event. You know, you can pick any one of those.
I know. I use this all the time. I do this. Like, I love this so much. Like, I know everything you're describing, because, like, I do that and I do that and I do that. Like, I use the signals all the time. I'm like, filter out everything else, and I write queries, and I like the little mini charts you put at the bottom. Like, I love all of it. Like, it's fantastic. Sorry, I didn't mean that. I asked you the question. No, I'm like, no, this is awesome.
No, I think it's just being able to. I mean, just being able to pick any kind of aspect of an event and then go and follow that and find all of the other events that that have that same property, like a request ID or a product ID. I think the other thing that makes Seq quite distinctive in this way is that it doesn't really prioritize any of those things, in that like it's not got a special schema for web requests or for SQL queries or anything built in. It's like whatever you attach to your log events, that is the first class data that Seq works with. And so instead of kind of having an off-the-shelf interface that has all of that kind of nice, request timings, dashboarding type thing, and then you have to dig through to find your data. It's kind of the other way. It's like you create the developer interface that you want, and then you start to kind of, surface things in the way that suit your app. Because, I think if you're, if you're building a I don't know, I don't want to say throwaway app. No one builds throwaway apps. Like actually, every time the surest way.
Most of my apps
are. Paraphrasing XKCD, I think the surest way to keep an app alive forever is to build it as a throwaway. Yeah, but I mean, there's lots of things that are common to all apps. You might want to sort of just use instrumentation that comes out of the box in the framework, say, and get some idea of what requests are being handled and everything else. But I think for things that you're investing in over a long time, like particularly big systems with microservices and lots of components, it's really it's really worth your while thinking about your own goals for instrumentation and diagnostics. Like if your whole world revolves around pizza, then pizza delivery, say, then the whole I don't know, that whole domain, like being able to trace like orders that were cooked in a particular oven, and adding an oven ID is kind of like, I mean, that's a daft example, but no,
it's fine. I know exactly where you're going, because it's not only like you guys make it easy for us to be kind of like lazy in a sense when logging, right? Because you parse it all, you allow us to query it, just like in this example here, where basically you can construct queries. The result sets come back like insanely fast. And to your point, I mean, you can almost log as much as you want. Like it's bananas how much you can log in here, like within reason, obviously. But
eventually you pay the piper, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, but it's fantastic because to your point, like sometimes when you use these logging libraries, like you get kind of antsy because after, like, they're addictive, right? You're like, I'll just log everything. Input was this, output is that, and you start putting in log levels and all that stuff. And you're like, wait. But then you use a tool like Seq, and it's like, no, it's okay. It's like you can still do a lot of logging, and you don't have to worry so much about having too many logs, because a tool like Seq will help you kind of grok what's in there.
Yeah, definitely. I think the nice thing that you've got as well is that you've got on your side is, if you start building in that kind of instrumentation early on in the process, like as you're building systems, you can kind of course correct. Like initially you speculatively log whatever you think might be interesting. And then as you go through a few outages and you fix a few bugs, you start to get a feel for what actually pays for itself and what doesn't. And you can kind of tune that data collection and, what you keep and what you filter out.
That was something I wanted to. I don't mean to interrupt, but that was something I wanted to ask you. Like, when you talk to customers about logging, do you have to sell them on the idea of like, listen, you really should think about this way up front. Like, don't add this as an afterthought. It's important as part of the software development lifecycle. Observability is part of the, an important part of a DevOps strategy, whatever you want to call it. Yada yada yada. You know where I'm going with this, but basically, like, I'm imagining you're having to not only sell the product, but also sell the idea of like, no, log, like it's important.
Yeah, I think I feel like there's probably also a bit of self-selection that happens there with customers in a way, because I think if you don't think about these things up front, you quickly find yourself in the position where all you can really do is just try to I don't know. I guess it is a garbage in kind of garbage out thing, but you can, you just have to create a huge search index over a whole pile of kind of questionable stuff. And then I don't know. I think if you don't build it in from the start, you kind of miss that navigation aspect of it, and you tend to end up with just like, I know that there's something out there with this keyword in it and I'm going to be able to track down an event or the events that have that, but that you kind of lose the overall kind of the flow of your, like, it's just a disjointed pile of data if you're not if you're not building those things in. I guess correlation is one of the things that makes that imperative if you've got lots of systems. Like, you really want to be able to move from one system to another by following, you can obviously follow things like request IDs or hierarchical trace IDs from one service into another. But like, say you're you're instrumenting a deployment automation system and you want to actually be able to follow like a release. Well, you got to really make sure that, or an individual deployment, you've got to make sure that all the nodes that are cooperating in that deployment use the same deployment ID when they're, recording log events for jobs they're doing as part of that deployment.
That could be important. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. If you don't build it in,
so then
that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So I was just going to say, so when you've got all that data in there, now you've got the ability to visualize it. And one of the other things that I like is obviously the ability to make pretty pictures. I'm a big fan of the charting capabilities of Seq. So
this is a very profitable cafe we're looking at. That's
right.
This is our delightful test data generator.
And also the alerts capability is something that I absolutely love as well. We actually use this as ourselves. So alerts are really, really important for notifying you, hey, something. Well, I won't use the phrase like this doesn't happen with us, but if something were to catch on fire per se, or there was a scenario, a set of logs that are coming in that you're like, this should never happen, and then they start happening. The thing that really strikes me about Seq is that it gives you true observability, and I find that nothing is better. There's no more magical feeling as a developer than observing your apps running in the wild. And what I mean by that is, how people talk about observability, and it's like, you're logging in on your dev environment, and that's not real world. But when you start logging back in a live environment, you start seeing things coming in, and then things catch on fire, and then it gets progressively worse and worse. You're like, wait, stop, sort of thing. So I love this. Like, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think, well, the other thing about, I think, log events as a basis for observability, not to get too deep into it, is just that, like, if you're instrumenting a program, you pretty quickly find out that the only thing you can really attach to a running program meaningfully is event oriented, right? Like, you don't have this kind of you can't really bung some kind of state into a live running application to kind of collect info. You have to surface information about your app through events. Is the least kind of intrusive and disruptive way. And the cool thing about events is that they're sort of a layer below, or a level below a lot of other kinds of data you can collect at runtime. Like, you can use events to build up metrics, say. For example, you can count the number of orders to kind of get an order, and an order count metric without ever adding an order count metric explicitly to your app. And it doesn't really work the other way around. If your app is instrumented just with metrics, you can't go back and get all of the detail about each individual order out of that. Like, events are kind of the most fundamental thing, and it's similar with traces too. Like, you can surface a start event and you can surface a stop event, and you can correlate things between them. But you can't, you can't really go the other way. You can't, you can't, like, a trace is a kind of a higher level construct than the event. So,
you definitely need to kick things off with a correlation ID. Otherwise, it's like,
and
it's like the way I think of observability tools is like, there's that phrase, like, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? I'm like, observability tools will not only tell you that the tree fell, it did make a sound, and here's the tree that fell, and here is the other, and this is where it fell, and this is where these other trees are about to fall, sort of thing. So I love them.
Yep. Yeah. I think the cool thing about the neat thing about, like, logs specifically, say, is though once the tree has fallen, you can see all of the individual, squirrels and chipmunks that were crushed.
That's right.
You have that really fine grained data, and if you haven't got logs, you really you're really left trying to kind of second guess what the effects of these kinds of events were.
Yes. So when coming back to Seq, I know like Seq's got a great web interface and it's great for all those reasons. The thing that I've been playing around with quite a bit actually, and I've really kind of gravitated to is of course your CLI, which is another way. You have APIs as well, and we recently at Octopus we recently redid our CLI. We have one that's based in C#.
Cool.
We recently redid it in Go.
Wow,
and that was an interesting experience. Yeah, we had some fun doing that, so we learned some new things. That was good.
Wow.
But you guys have a CLI too, and this is obviously like giving you kind of. I think I don't know. I'm gonna just kind of go a little bit off the stand on my soapbox here a little bit, but I think that I think we're in a renaissance of CLI and terminal UIs. I think that for far. Like this is my presidential address. Far too long we have ignored the terminal. Far too long, my brothers and sisters, comrades, we have ignored the CLI, and we are having a return to the CLI. So you've got the spectrum of APIs on one end. On the other end, you've got your web UI, which is typically web because let's face it, it's the internet. And then somewhere in the middle, it's kind of like lost. Like there's this like space that no one kind of exists, but like that's where the CLI really shines, I find. And so I've been watching the work that folks like the Charm folks have been doing. They've been building out a terminal UI layer, which is fantastic. We used a framework called Cobra for Go. There's all kinds of libraries that are out there for like Python and for C# has a set of libraries for doing this. You guys have your own CLI as well, which is fantastic. Like, is this the primary way in which, like, once you get folks past the web UI, they're like, yeah, okay, great, and then they become advanced users? Like, does everyone gravitate to the CLI?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the CLI at the moment. I mean, actually, we actually have a CLI under our CLI. We are CLIs like several layers.
Turtles all the way down.
Yeah, all the way down. So we've got the Seq CLI, and then we've got the CLI of Seq itself, and then underneath that, the database that Seq runs on, which is also like a custom event store, has its own CLI, and we live in there. So we certainly do. At the moment, the CLI for us is a big integration point for automatically. I mean, provisioning. Someone will set a process up that when they deploy a new application, they trigger a call to the CLI, and that goes and creates a new API key for that application to log with.
Right.
Those kinds of scenarios really strong. But I'm with you on the Renaissance thing. Like I've actually been spending a lot of time recently playing around with a new shell called Nushell, which kind of promises to be a nice integration point for all of these different like new CLIs that speak JSON or speak other structured formats. I think if you're from the Windows world, I mean PowerShell, that will sound like PowerShell, and there'll be a familiar kind of a notion. But yeah, Nushell maybe has a little bit more of a I guess a traditional shell feel. Makes it really easy to go and take output from things like no, that's you almost different shell.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I mean, like there's so many shells out there. They're like my posh and like there's like terminal.dev and like there's like who doesn't have a shell these days?
No, it's actually NU for Nushell.
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah,
and then I'm sure it's under. I'll have to. All right, this will be fun. Let's see if we can find it on the fly here. So new, is it this or this or NUSH?
Yeah, that's right. ELL.
Okay, let's search all of GitHub. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's because it's built in Rust. That's right. We're gonna talk about this. Don't worry. But yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, you're playing. You're showing me your hand well before we're gonna talk about it. So, all right. So tell me about this Nushell.
Well, I mean, I couldn't do it justice, but in Nushell,
that's fine.
Nushell, I think, is somewhat like, I guess, PowerShell's concept of between commands,
piping objects.
Data carries its structure, but unlike unlike I think a lot of the ones we've seen before this, Nushell's based on tables rather than on objects, and it just happens to fit really well with a lot of operating system data. Probably, it's probably a bit deep to try and dig into all of the you
No,
know,
no, no. I
more
totally
details
rock
now.
what you're
But
saying. This makes total
but
sense to me. I hadn't heard about this, so I'm gonna have to research this. Thank you very much. Now
yeah, no,
I'm gonna
but
waste my time on this.
well, no, I think once this terminal renaissance is fully, fully
Realized?
realized, we're going to have to glue all of these CLIs together with something that speaks speaks the language that.
I know. I know. Everyone's
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like I mean, I didn't mean to talk about this with you, but it's like I'm glad that I brought this up because I'm not the I feel like I'm the only one talking about this sometimes, but I see it everywhere. Like everyone's using console, command line, terminals, and CLIs are the new hotness. Like GitHub has its CLI, 1Password has its CLI. People are
Well, we're
building these
also,
CLIs in a variety of languages. It's crazy, like what you can do there.
it's funny. It's funny because we're also running a lot more code now especially in the Microsoft .NET Windows world. I guess that I've come from historically. Like we're running a lot more code in environments where there is no GUI. Where like I think 10 years ago we all deployed to machines that you could remote desktop into and click around them with a mouse. And now I
That's
find
cheating.
I've got a tiny little prompt on a Graviton machine or something like that on AWS, and if it's not got a CLI, there's nothing I can. Yeah.
I know it's like dead to me. I don't want to speak to you.
It's a nice place that we've landed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting back to a little bit around Seq. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. So you guys dropped a recent update last week. So we're recording here on February 23rd, roughly. So about 2 weeks ago, you guys dropped 2023.1, and you have this very, I guess, ambitious, bold, arrogant, I would say, dare I say, ready to rock your world. So we'll talk a little bit about Seq proper, like in terms of the tech stack. But I'm curious to know how is my world about to be rocked?
Yeah, well, I hope it will be rocked by your own log data that's now within easier reach. Yeah, no, the interesting thing about Seq and the way it's evolved as a tech stack, I guess, is that it was built really with this user experience goal first, and I mean that was just the naivety, I guess, of the founding team. Where instead of it was a good thing in a sense, but instead of starting with like, we've got this amazing data store, it's column based, we can we can issue this particular kind of query really easily. So can we build a model for diagnostics around that? We've got this amazing text index like Lucene was back when Elastic was kind of first imagined. And I think like Seq's kind of the other way around, where the goals initially were almost all experience driven, and then the back end of it was just a servant to that, like what kind of storage technology is going to support this kind of interaction model. And so in the very beginning it was sort of looking like, it was very hard to find things off the shelf that provided anything like the kind of log file like time ordered.
Are you setting a stage to talk about Flare now?
Yeah, well, no. Seq, that's it. Seq was initially kind of hoping, like I hope that it could be built without building essentially a database and a storage engine. Yeah,
you had to do this. You had to write your own encryption algorithm, didn't you?
No, thankfully, no, nothing that crazy. Yeah, but no, about 5 years ago, I think we realized that no one else was going to do it for us. There's just not much investment happening in like there's Kafka, which I think is probably well known as being something that's highly like event centric, but most of the other tools that for storing data at that low level all rely on some kind of schema and all make it very difficult to navigate in a time-based manner. Seq is all about like incremental time-ordered search. So if something is recent, you'll find it before something that's old, and that's just how we want to work with log data. So we started building, I guess, the lowest level of that, the storage engine in Rust, about 2018, and that was our first foray into Rust, which was it was drinking from the fire hose. It was an amazing experience, but
it was like more like a drinking from the water slide. Oh my god! Like Rust has been I can't tell you sorry to interrupt, but like I can't tell you how much I've been reading about Rust, just going bananas. Like everyone, there's this term I read on Twitter. It's called the Chad tech stack. I don't know what that means.
Oh
But
no.
like, yeah, it's bad.
Okay.
But Rust like falls in that camp of like, this is awesome. Like this is the best thing. Like I mean, what's been your experience with Rust? Like personally, like have you found it like? I know that like hugely strongly typed, really great for very small module sizes, really secure. I mean, like I've heard countless anecdotes about it. What's your take on it?
Yeah, so initially, yeah, like everybody, I had kind of unbridled enthusiasm, and I think I've probably developed a more reasonable view over time. Like my colleague Ashley actually just gave a really great talk at one of the local conferences here in Brisbane, sort of pointing out just how absurd some of the complexity that you do need to confront when you're working with Rust can be. But I think if you have the kind of problem that Rust excels for, there are very few like accessible alternatives. So so we're building essentially a database, right? And we deal with tons of concurrency and a whole lot of data moving. The latest iteration that's in the recent 23.1 release. We've got a parallel query engine that uses data flow, and so we've got readers pulling data out of buffers and channels distributing that to workers and stuff being aggregated, and like all this has to happen like in a database with a kind of a reasonable ceiling on resource usage and a predictability that I think if you've got a garbage collector involved, it can be very hard to achieve. Or at least you're out of the sweet spot of garbage collected languages once you're into that world. So Rust has been extremely robust for us. It constantly catches our concurrency, bugs before they're bugs, memory bugs before they're bugs. It just it won't let you write buggy code in a lot of different ways. I don't think we could possibly have shipped what we've been working on and shipping without it.
Really?
But we get up to a certain layer where where say at the top of things, Seq is like a web application that's serving web requests, and it's it's dealing with OpenID Connect, and it's dealing with encryption, different kinds of plugins, all those kinds of things. And there, like we use C# and we're currently using .NET 7. And it excels because you can just concentrate on the details of the problem rather than the details of how data is moving. Like in those lower layers of the stack, how the data is moving around is the problem, But once I'm handling a web request, I just want my web request body deserialized into a nice JSON structure, and I don't want to think about anything particularly much, except for the business logic of maybe adding a new user or whatever that the web endpoint is handling. And I think that's where C# and I guess I would imagine Go and the garbage collected languages, Java, they all really I think are likely to remain better choices than Rust at that layer.
But well, you're in good company. I mean, like this is what you're stating here is that you're pretty much aligned to all the popular languages. Like this is the state of the Octaverse, yeah. So you're seeing like the second fastest growing language in GitHub is Rust.
Still Rust. Oh yes, and the top one is a configuration language. So it's probably
that's HashiCorp configuration language. So there you go. This one always just is bananas to me. Like I'm just like, HCL really? It's the fastest one, but I guess a lot of people are doing infrastructure as code, which is awesome. But if you read this report or you read Stack Overflow survey, etc., Rust is always ranked as like the most loved and the most wanted to be used, etc., etc. So I mean, you guys have definitely taken a good choice. And you said 2018 is when you decided to move. So I mean, you saw the writing on the wall there, I guess.
yeah, from that point, we've kind of kept on moving Rust up the stack until we've reached a point now we've reached a kind of a balance between the C# and .NET side and the Rust side that works really nicely for us.
So which one's going to win?
Yeah,
Which one's going to win for you guys? Are you guys going to put a mandate down and say, okay, it's all Rust or all C#?
No, I think we'll be hybrid C# and Rust, for the
Nice.
foreseeable future. Yeah, I'd love to see more of the .NET world embrace Rust and probably more of the Rust world supporting, those higher level consuming languages like C# and the .NET stack, because I think, it's pretty unlikely for any one application that just one of those languages is going to be the best choice to me. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you if you're keeping track, like you mentioned, you just recently went up to .NET 7. Had you heard about like .NET 8 Preview 1 just dropped? Have you heard about this? Or is there anything that you guys need?
Yeah.
Like
well,
that you're looking
I like
for?
I like the look of the freezable container types that are in there. Actually, there's a couple of new types, like a frozen dictionary and a frozen set.
Okay.
I think they are where you can, you build a dictionary or a set and then you freeze it and it optimizes itself internally for lookups from that point onwards.
Right.
Yeah, because that pattern seems to show up in a lot of our code. Where you don't really need all of the kind of both sides of insertion and lookup that you get with something like a dictionary all the time. Like lots of types tend to just get, a kind of a building stage and then a use stage. And I think we're going to see heaps of use out of those types.
Yeah, really. Okay. Yeah, this is
the
frozen dictionary you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, I think they're super exciting. I am interested too in doing more native AOT, but I've been this is maybe a bit cynical too, but like I've been kind of burnt by ahead of time compilation sort of features in the .NET world enough times that I really I want the confidence that the code I write that compiles is going to run as much as possible. I think Rust has spoiled me for that, actually. Like if Rust code builds, it generally runs. Like and getting it to build is the problem. Like .NET, I think it'd be nice if .NET went further and further in that direction.
I know. I'm so with you, because this is part of the reason. One of the reasons why we went to Go for our new CLI, because it was based in .NET before, was because the installation instructions, we had built it in C# and we had we tried to compile it down as much as we could, and you still had to have all these libraries run along for the ride if you're running on Linux, for example. And it was we just wanted something that was fast, small, and like could run anywhere. It could run anywhere. And I think what you're speaking to is one of the values of Rust. I think to a certain extent, Go is also. It's kind of interesting. You got the crabs versus the gophers fighting it out for popularity. So I would argue that Go hits the sweet spot for me in terms of it's right in the middle. It threads the needle there, just fast enough, etc. I mean, the library's a little bit bloated compared to Rust. I mean, Rust, you can't beat the size of the binaries are insanely small. It's incredible. But
I see Go as being like very much in the same kind of tier as C# though too, and that it's like if you're worried about sort of controlling the exactly when mem copies and things happen, like Go's not really serving that sort of need. So I think if you've got the opportunity to choose Go over Rust, maybe because you're not dealing with those kinds of concerns so much, like I think I can imagine Go being pretty comfortable and ergonomic that way too. But
yeah, and I guess I'm not keeping track of how good the ecosystem is around Rust with its libraries and such, but I would imagine you're feeling pretty confident in what's available there for you for your team to use. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. Rust has amazing crate ecosystem, so very much like NuGet. You know what? It's just a great time to be a developer though, because we're spoiled with so many ecosystems now are effectively complete, where it's not that you have to run Java or .NET, or you might not be able to interop with some kind of enterprisey standard. It's like actually now if you choose JavaScript or Rust or Go or Python or .NET or Java, you can you can be pretty sure that you'll be able to interact with most operating system features and most, services out there. It's really cool. But I'm glad that we didn't all end up with just some, homogenous, everybody in the world runs JavaScript kind of view.
I do like competition is good. I think that's what we're saying. So it's kind of interesting.
ChatGPT wipes them all away.
The other one I wanted to ask you about, and I know we're kind of jumping around here, but this is one that I've been watching for a while. You mentioned a little bit about this, where you've got you've got metrics, logs, and traces, etc. This is definitely in your camp, but OpenTelemetry is one of those things. It's a CNCF project. It's got a lot of broad reach, etc. I don't know if it's certainly under the auspices of CNCF, I think.
It is, yeah.
And you've got a lot of vendors involved, etc. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's an awesome initiative, especially for products like Seq, right? Like we're building OpenTelemetry log ingester that'll mean that any framework or ecosystem that's got OpenTelemetry support, we should be able to get high quality structured log data in that way. I'm cautious of really putting too much hope in a new standard, reducing the total number of standards. I do note that there's a lot of kind of careful accommodation in OpenTelemetry for all of the existing protocols of all of the existing vendors who are involved in the effort. So I think that it'd be nice if eventually we reach a point where everything speaks a single protocol. But I think that at the moment it's pretty unlikely that we'll switch away from accepting, for example, GELF is another standard for receiving structured logs that's been basically standardized and available in a number of ecosystems to date. And I think one of the problems that you also have with really broad interop efforts is, on the surface, it looks like there's a lot of common ground, but behind the scenes, we see we have to ingest logs from all kinds of different applications, all using similar protocols, like using GELF, for example, and it's actually getting really consistent, useful data that looks the same out of all of them is still, I don't know. I think we should probably not get too distracted by the transport, and I think the next step after a lot of this stuff is widely available is going to be back to focusing on the quality of the data that we put in. Like having your logs or your traces or metrics or whatever else is eventually added to OpenTelemetry consumable anywhere over that kind of protocol is awesome. But if you're not writing useful log events, or if you're not controlling the volume of the data that you're logging, it's still going to be a much less useful tool than if you are, I guess it's unfortunately or not, as developers, we can't kind of hand off responsibility for producing quality data in our applications. Like you can get sort of tracing of web requests, say, out of the box, but if your domain is deploying software or delivering pizza or whatever else, you really need to put the effort in to think about how you're going to instrument that domain in a way that serves your goals, rather than just producing a kind of a tick box on the list of technologies that you're going to have supported in there.
Yep.
I don't know, but then again, I'm probably a bit jaded. I'm reminded of SOAP and how we were going to have interoperability between services based on, and I see the WS star, extensions and those kinds of things.
Yep.
Every time I see a big standardization effort like that, I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
In the end, there's no substitute for just good systems engineering at both ends of the pipe, right? You can standardize all of the interop and the protocols and the transports to your heart's content, but if the data that's flowing across them, is not kind of aligned, or I would agree up to a point. I would say that the WS star, or what people call the WS Death Star, the specification
moment was the thing that they didn't do well, which I think the OpenTelemetry folks are doing, is they didn't make it practical for developers. They published a ton of specs and no implementations.
Yeah.
And it was like, what do I do with this thing? This is useless. And so people were kind of left to their own devices. Whereas the OpenTelemetry folks, they're writing custom sources and syncs and all that sort of stuff, and they're allowing you to get your hands dirty, basically, if you're doing C# or Go or Rust or whatever. So I think there's a slight difference there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. We have learned a few things in the intervening years.
That's right.
Yeah.
You got to give me the bits. You got to give me the bits. I can't do anything if you don't give me bits. So
yeah, totally. I guess I just mean that like at the end of the day, it's all down to practices and tools. Not just tools.
Yep. People, process, and tools. Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Just wrapping up here. Obviously, if you guys want to check out what Nick and his band of merry developers are doing, you can go check out Datalust at datalust.co. Is there a reason why you didn't get the .com? Come on, what is this? 1990?
Check out Datalust. Yeah, we do have the .com, but we just save that extra character every time you type it.
Yep, I like it. You're also on Twitter there, so you can follow along if you're interested in hearing Nick's thoughts. And anything else you wanted to kind of wrap up on? What's next? What's next for Seq? What can customers expect? What are you going to look at next? What is there anything you want to share? Anything you want to divulge?
Well, our job is never done. Yeah. No.
Okay.
So I mean,
more polish.
Well, no. Yeah. And also, we've just built kind of like yet another kind of foundation for a whole stack of stuff that we've had in the pipeline for a long time. So it's going to be a busy year for us. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No. But I definitely, I think just, I think we should totally expect a lot more activity and interest still in this instrumentation world over the next coming years. Like, I think we'll start to, once we've internalized that it's kind of part and parcel of doing software engineering, much like we have with CI/CD and automated testing. Like, I think then we'll really start to see some of the diversity of tools and techniques coming through. So I think it's there's an exciting 10 years ahead of like things that we might not have envisaged now, and how we're going to instrument and manage apps. So I don't know. I think it'll be we'll be there and we'll be along for that ride.
I hate this. I'm ending this like Robin Williams at the end of Good Will Hunting. He's like, you stole my line. So anyways, I think that's a great place for us to wrap it up. Thanks a lot, Nick. I really appreciate chatting with you. And I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do next.